Hello and welcome to a new episode of Wave Work Stress Goodbye with me, your host, Luke Richardson. I've got an extra special episode again for you today. It's another interview style podcast today on this episode. Today I have Jessie Douglass-Smith McGraw on the podcast. Jessie is a teacher of the three principles understanding, the type of understanding I try to teach you guys indirectly when it comes to work stress, anxiety, and depression. Jessie has her own podcast and YouTube channel labeled What Moves You with Jessie, with some of the most incredible guests, such as Linda Pransky and Dr. Aaron Turner. And if you haven't heard them, you need to. They are absolutely brilliant, and I will link them on the notes section on this recording so you can easily get access to them. But yeah, with no further ado, welcome, Jessie.
Thank you so much, Luke. I really love being here, and I was really, really grateful you asked. Thank you so much.
No, no, I really appreciate you coming on. So, I explained to you off the recording that the reason why I wanted to get you on because when you had a conversation with Dr. Aaron Turner recently, your story about how you were in the bathroom one time and how you thought you'd be in a job forever, and you suddenly had an insight. Would you care to kick things off on that and explain to me your story of your history of work and how you came across the principles and your insights, basically, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Yes, it absolutely makes sense. Absolutely. So for a little context, I come from a family of traditional therapists, and I went to school for psychology, but I had zero intention of staying in the field. I went to school for psychology purely because I thought, oh, I know this language like the back of my hand because of my family culture. And I can get my education kind of done quickly, get in and out of school quickly as a result of that. Because what I ultimately wanted to do was just dance professionally, because I had trained my whole life to be a professional dancer. So I did that, went to school, did great, was a professional dancer for a decade. Then I was in a meeting with well, no, it wasn't a meeting. It was much more informal. I had taken my agent to lunch one day to say thank you for a job I had just booked. And she had suggested to me that she had said that one of the last times I had been in the office with the agency, that and when I left, they thought, oh, she would make an amazing agent one day. When my agent said that to me, I had, at the time, I had no thoughts of changing my career, no thoughts at all in doing that. But when she said it to me, it's like a puzzle piece clicked inside of me. I didn't say anything to her because I didn't know what was happening. But for the following days, as I just kind of sat with that information, it was like colors were brighter. I felt kind of like when that feeling when you're first in love with somebody
Yeah.
and it's just like nothing sticks to you and you're just like, oh, that's what's next. I even have some chills even revisiting that feeling. Um, so it felt so right. So after a few days, I called my agents and said, I would love to take you up on that. I would love to do that now. Like when I'm done with this dance job, because I was on a job. When I'm done with this, I would love to make a pivot and go into agenting. Now, I was somebody who I didn't start finding success in my dance career till I was about 26 because I had lived in an anxious body previous to me finding the principles understanding. I was riddled with it all the time. I wouldn't say I identified as an anxious person because I didn't see that it was like an affliction. I just thought it was something that was a part of me, that this is just Jesse's experience of life is this kind of like water on a circuit board feeling. um, so anyway, but all of that being said, when I would audition as a dancer, I would oftentimes blank out, forget choreography, things like that, because my mind would shut down. With what I know now, it was protecting itself because my mind
Yes.
was essentially
Yeah.
overheating. but I saw it again as a problem. So, all of that being said, between 26 and 29, when I was having this conversation with my agent, that's when I really started to work. So, when I called my agents and said, "Hey, I would love to make this transition," they said, "Oh, we didn't mean now. We meant like down the road, like it, keep dancing. It's taken a while to get here." Like, no.
Yeah.
I couldn't deny the fact that I totally respected what they were saying. I appreciated their care, but I got off that phone call and thought, it still feels right to transition. Um, well, very quickly, just like with being in any industry, the longer you're in it, the smaller it becomes.
Yes.
Meaning more and more people. So, I got a phone call from the co-owner of a competing agency that's one of the top agencies for dancers and choreographers here in LA and New York. And they offered me a position. I went in for an interview, but it was like I was a shoe-in. She was like, the woman said, you know, we would love to have you if you would have us. So I started training to be an agent while I finished that last dance job. That's how much my lives overlapped. The first chapter of my life and the second. When I got the job and I was in it, I was high as a kite. I thought, my God, it resolved any insecure thinking I had around consistency of finances because being an entrepreneur as a dancer, it's money comes and goes. So there was a lot of good stuff. Here in the States, that meant that I had insurance because unfortunately, not like you guys, we don't have national health care.
Yeah. We don't know how
So
lucky we are over here, to be honest, do we?
truly, truly, truly. So I was so stoked. Cut to, I was hired in July. By the following May, um, I basically in that time was starting to get whispers from inside that something was off. Little ordinary things like I remember one time driving to work and this quiet voice inside would say, "Are you really going to drive the same way to work for the next 30 years?" And then my mind would negotiate with it and go, "Oh, well, we'll just find other ways to get there. Drive different paths." Um, the quiet voice would say, "You're not really enjoying this." And my mind would go, "Well, you've never had a job like this before. You'll get used to it." And so it just, that ping pong was happening and I just keep going. By that following May, I finally admitted out loud to my husband and my mom, who was visiting me at the time, I'm really miserable. And it was very disorienting for me because I had always been someone who was very clear on my goals and I would bear every burden, shoulder every problem to get there. Um, with dancing, with my education, with dancing, then again with agenting. I've just been a very driven, stick to it type person. So for me to admit finally out loud that I was miserable, it was very confronting because it didn't feel right to go back to dancing, even though it had been only 8 months since I left the industry as a dancer. It didn't feel right to go get a license as a traditional therapist, which would be the extension of my education. And then obviously agenting wasn't fitting. And it was so confusing to me because it felt like, for lack of a better way of saying this, it felt like the universe had rolled out the red carpet for me to make this transition so quickly and into a company that was so highly respected and all this stuff. Like I just was like, how is this so wrong when it looked so right and felt so right? So I plummeted into a deep depression that lasted about 3 or 4 months before that shower moment that I'll share with you. And I had experienced some light depression in the past, but I'd never experienced a type of intense depression that I fell into. Um, my lymph nodes became the size of golf balls because of my physical body was responding to the chronic stress. And I had gotten into this space where I don't know if you've experienced this or your listeners, but when the deeper we go into a depression, oftentimes the mind starts to just kind of go around the same 10 things. So I was in that swirl of thinking around I should have left my job yesterday, but where would you go? I'm not even a religious person by any stretch, but at that time, I remember saying, did God forget to put a purpose in you? Because I felt so lost. And, just anyway, so that circular thinking was happening. So, cut to one evening at the end of a long day, um, you know, 12-hour workday. I was on my way home having an anxiety attack, which truly I was actually not, it was not a problem to me because I was so used to it. So as soon as I got home, I got in the shower just to help myself calm down. But while I was in there, I had this moment because I was starting to get really, not starting to, I had been, but I was really at my wit's end of my circular thinking. Um, so I had this moment in the shower where I put my head down in the water right as I got in, and I remember saying, I'm so sick of thinking the same 10 thoughts over and over again. How am I ever going to get somewhere new if I can't get a new idea? And like a crack of lightning, I had a new thought, which was everything you're feeling is coming from your thoughts, not the world around you. And I went, what? And very quickly, it was like that was one thought. Then the next thought that was super fast was you could be at war, but if you're waltzing through the tulips in your mind, that's the experience you'd be having. And I knew on a very deep level that wasn't referencing like positive thinking or cognitive behavioral therapy because I had tried all of these different things to help with my anxiety back when I was a dancer. I knew it wasn't about reframing to just be Pollyanna while life is challenging. I knew that's not what it meant. What I knew on a very deep instinctive level, because that's the power of insight from within, I knew instantly that that war tulips imagery meant that my internal experience was not dependent on what was going on around me. Said another way, that how I was feeling on the inside was independent of what was going on around me. And for me, that was huge because I had always thought my anxiety was telling me something about who I was with, where I was, or how well I was doing in life. I thought my anxiety was like psychic, giving me a heads up about my outsides. So in that moment, for me to see, holy shit, excuse my language. I didn't ask you
You
if I'm
you you
allowed to
you you
cuss.
can swear on
Okay.
this podcast.
Okay. In that moment, I went, oh my God. I essentially saw very clearly, very quickly, that I had been suffering by my own hand. And at that point where I was in my depression and in my relationship to my thinking about my work and about my colleagues was that my suffering was the result of them, the system I was working in, the people I was working with. Um, and that's what was making me feel so trapped and scared in my job. And so for me to see this so clearly, Luke, my depression instantly dropped. It just was gone. And I knew immediately people need to know this. Why don't we know this? I ran out of the shower, called my mom, who was in semi-retirement from her marriage and family therapy practice. And I was like, Mom, we've been doing it wrong this whole time. Because I saw, why do we keep walking into, and I have no judgment on traditional therapy. All helpers in the world are wonderful and help people in the most magnificent way. So that's not, please don't misinterpret me. But I did see that in the field of psychology and in my studies and everything, it's the habit of human beings to analyze. And then it was positively reinforced by my family culture and my education. And I could see in that instant that my analysis is what was creating all my issues all the time. And so when I called her and I said this, she goes, that sounds a lot like an insight a man named Sydney Banks had. who defined the field of the three principles that is really kind of upending the field of psychology in a beautiful way. She had just been in discussion with about it with a dear colleague and family friend of hers who was also a psychologist. And so she said, look in that direction, go see what happens. So I spent the next year, because I just promised myself I was going to go help people, but I wasn't going to do that until that my instincts, that wisdom that had come to mind in the shower. I was like, I'm going to wait until that tells me it's time to leave. Um, and so that ended up being just under a year. And it was wonderful because then I just started to deep dive into reading, Sydney Banks books and um, just really going back into an environment that I had previously deemed the reason for my suffering. It was like my master's or my PhD program in the principles because it was every single time, like starting right away the next morning. I remember going to the restroom because my habit was to go to the bathroom with my phone and check my email. And I would already be braced for impact, like stress wise. And I remember going, wait, before I opened my email, because of that insight, I went, wait a second. Your mind is already in the future around what you're going to see. You don't know what you're going to see there yet. Hold on.
That reminds me of me. All the time,
Yeah.
all the time.
And I'd let my mind settle, then I'd open
Yeah.
the email, and all of a sudden, the emails that I used to perceive as mean, because I was in my lens of everybody is mean to me, even though I never would have said that. But in hindsight, I could say it that simply. But when I was able to read just every single intense email, because it's a high pressure, high intensity job. I could read through people's stress in their emails and just see what the directive was and not take their shit personally, not take their moods or their tone personally. And that became my learning curve while I was there. And so that's it. That's how that was. And that was 8.5 years ago. I left.
Well,
My insight was 9 years ago, and I left eight.
I think I'm now a reflection of the name of your podcast because that's really moved me. I can feel
Oh,
your
nice.
story through my body. That's how much it's affected me because it just proves, doesn't it, this how powerful this understanding is. Because despite all that you went through, you still had the potential for that insight in the shower. It came through despite everything you went through, your experience, all the suffering you went through. It came at the right time for you. That's how powerful, and that's why I do this, and that's why I get people like you on because it just proves how powerful this understanding can be.
Yes, yes. And that you don't have to be, people will often link me being educated and coming in the field of psychology and coming from therapists. People will often link, oh, that's why you help people in this way. And they're completely untethered. They are not connected because what we're talking about here is essentially that people have innate, born with mental health that they can return to when they wake up to the fact that they have just been, convinced of something else. And that convinced of something else is what's made them feel so lost, And
I mean,
I'm not, yeah, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt. I mean, your story that you presented just resonated with me a lot because, like me, I was for people who don't know, listen to the podcast. I was a project manager for 7.5 years, and I need to explain to the stress that comes with being a project manager. You've got emails flying everywhere, people ringing you, wanting updates on this, wanting updates on that, and I I did take what you said. I didn't take personally. I did have moments where I took that personally to me, and all along, obviously, it's in hindsight it's easier than in the moment, but all along it was all coming from my own thinking. But I didn't see it at the time. That's how so convincing the illusion is to us.
Exactly. That's right. That's right. We swear to God that we know what people are thinking. We know what their intention is. We swear to God, we can, I know that's what they meant. And you don't
Yeah.
ever. Nothing is ever personal. It doesn't mean hang in there with people's bad behavior. No, but it makes it a hell of a lot easier to recognize that people's behavior is a side effect of their own inner world. And so then, when you're not as hooked because you're not taking their stuff personally, it allows you to move on and take care of yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's not always easy to get there, but the potential's always there to get there.
Yes, exactly. That's right.
So,
That's right.
Jesse, I just want to ask you, so you're back at work and you have a colleague who is under a lot of distress, and um, how would you approach that person without being all blasé about it, as in to say, "Oh, it's just your thinking." Do you know what I mean? How would you approach them and help them to see that deep down underneath all the, I'm going to swear now, the bullshit?
Yeah.
How do you help them to see that, they're just living an illusion that's not real?
Yeah.
But without being insulting to them, I guess I'm trying to say, because for them
Yes,
it's
I
real.
that's right. You're right. Absolutely. Well, let me firstly say, out of all honesty, when I first saw that we are all living in thought that looks like life, I've been on a big old learning curve on how to help people, because that first year I was saying to everybody, it's just thought. It's just thought. It's just because I was so excited. Excuse me. I was so excited about it, and I was seeing it so simply and clearly. Um, and so, ultimately, I just want to be honest with that at the beginning I was being very oversimplified with it in the way that I was delivering it with people. Now, where I am, if I were to be in that kind of environment again, working within a system of employees, first and foremost, I would just listen, because it is amazing what happens with people when you deeply listen to what's going on with them. And because when people feel deeply heard, and when I say deeply, I mean with a wholly present mind and self, not listening with an agenda of fixing, not listening with an agenda of anything, not listening with your own personal thinking getting in the way of, well, I would do this if I were in their shoes. I'm talking about when you go to an absolute blank and quiet mind and you are truly present with the other person. It is amazing what happens to people when they feel heard. That's what's so amazing about the principles and this understanding, because we're not talking about a new tool or technique or concept. We're talking about how humans work fundamentally, in the same way that we have figured out that if you have a lack of potassium, your muscles can cramp. So eating a banana can be helpful. The fact that women, you know, people with uteruses know they will have a menstrual cycle and it comes with these symptoms and side effects. If we didn't understand or know what was happening, that that monthly situation could be very scary. We could all be running around going, I'm going to die again this month.
It's understanding about how something works.
That's right.
Yeah.
But because we understand how our body works, we could roll our eyes at it, but we're not afraid of what's happening. That's what the three principles does for people. And when you're sitting in a quiet mind and deeply listening to somebody else, it is amazing how their own wisdom and common sense comes to the table, and they can start to see through where they've kind of maybe been caught up in story about whatever the situation is, um, where they might even see where, what to do about the quote unquote problem, just by being deeply listened to.
I think listening
Then,
is
yeah,
one of those underrated skills that we kind of, because of life so fast and things are happening all the time, we've forgotten how to do for each other.
Yes. I agree with you, even though it's the most natural freaking thing
Yeah,
ever.
I mean, when you were telling your story a few moments ago, and when I asked you the first when we introduced the recording, um, I did that with you. I deeply listened, and as I say, I could feel it. I could feel your story through me. I think that's what deep listening is. It's experiencing what the other person's experiencing.
Yes. And just so you know, I could feel that you were listening to me in that way. Because you can feel when anybody, you and I aren't psychic and have a sixth sense. No, you can sit on a park bench and watch people walk by, and you can tell when somebody's distracted or present. You can see when someone's caught up in their head or not. And so the same goes for when we're listening to each other. I could tell you were present with me. And I've been interviewed on other podcasts where I can tell I'm not being listened to. It's okay. I'm not mad about it. But you can just tell when someone's really busy inside versus really with you. And just to finish that, my last thought on that question, the only other thing that occurs to me to say is that I would, in helping somebody who's caught up and, in how to help them, deeply listening, number one. And then number two, sharing with that person that they have the permission to give a little space to whatever the problem is they think they have. You know, why don't you, put it down for a bit for today. Sleep on it, see what occurs to you tomorrow about what to do about it. Because everybody resonates with, oh, that's right. When my mind settles, I can see more clearly, even though they wouldn't articulate it that way. So it's essentially just pointing somebody to what they already know inside themselves, but essentially going, here's a door that maybe you don't see right now because you're so upset and caught up in yourself. It looks like you need to, it creates a sense of urgency. So I need to find a solution and figure it out right now. And that is never, ever the case.
Can I share a story from what happened to me
Please.
yesterday? So I
Yes.
was on my way home from work. I popped into the local supermarket on the way back before just to get some bits for our evening meal, and I saw a homeless person on the floor. And you see homeless people, don't you, in around areas, and there's lots of people walking past. And I nearly walked past, and he said hello to me, and I said hello back, and he said something, and I thought, I just felt like I had to go back and hear what he said 'cause I didn't quite catch it, but I went back, heard what he said, and he went, "No, I'm not really okay." And I said, "Oh, why is that?" And he says, "Someone stole my tent." So he obviously had a tent nearby, and it looks like the local council or some other homeless people had stolen it, and it was just like tonight a freezing cold evening. I'm really feeling his pain and feeling quite helpless of what to do because there's not much I can really do for him. But I could feel him. I was listening to him, and I could tell he was, like you just said, about someone being. Obviously, he was present. He knew his situation, but his head was all over the place, which you can understand in a situation like that. And I'm just thinking, what are you going to do tonight? I just said to him, if I was you, I would probably call for help again. It was getting quite late in the evening, so I'm not too sure what resources would have been available at that time. But I said, look, if it was me, next thing I would do is find some shelter. There's another supermarket over there that has like it's like got a roof on top of the car, so it's a little bit more sheltered than the one I was at, which was more open. At least he would be dry if he was underneath this other supermarket. And I said I would call for help, and I just hope that space, like you just said, came with someone like that to think, oh yeah, I'll just call for help again and see if something can be done.
That's very moving, Luke. Because even just being seen and spoken to and feeling your heart was, I'm sure, just so heartening, even for the person. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just thought as long as he knows I've listened to him, and like you say,
Yes.
when someone he feels heard, it can make a massive difference to their psychology.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And when people feel, love is ultimately what is felt when someone deeply listens and you feel seen and feel heard. When that love is felt, the mind naturally settles. That's the way we work. And when the mind settles, it's amazing how creative we can get with ideas that can help us. And you know, there's a big potential there that after you walked away that happened for that person. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, when we when we get that shift internally within us, when we find that space, I think you touched on it before with your own personal story at the start. But what changed when we understand? I think you mentioned at the start of the recording that we go into that space. You had goosebumps. I think I remember you saying you had goosebumps, and I think I know what you're trying to portray because I've had that feeling before, but not as often as I'd have liked. I'd like, even though it's available all the time, I'd like it more. And when you get into that space, how do you think that makes someone feel? If that makes it, does that make sense?
well, are you talking about more of yeah, I would love some more clarity. Do you mean when we drop into a quiet mind?
Yes.
Or
What
yes,
does that do for us as people
what is it?
when we
Oh,
get there? When we get there?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, ultimately, what I have seen more and more for myself in my own life over the last decade, um, is that experiencing a quiet mind, it's interesting. It's so counterintuitive to the way that I used to think. Because I really thought that thinking things through, knowing what to do, being 10 steps ahead, having, think through a bunch of different ways something could go. I thought that was proactive and responsible. That's what you do in being a good friend, a good human, good partner, a successful person, somebody who achieves their goals, um, a good part of society. Like I just thought that's the way it worked. I didn't realize that we had a deeper mind or a deeper guidance system that is unbelievably practical, unbelievably practical. And it's we can all relate to it. Those that our instincts, people usually call it, oh, my gut said this, or I had this quiet voice that was nudging me to call that person, right? Or this person came to mind just out of the blue, right? Like we reference it all the time. But I had no idea that it was something that was consistent, constant, and reliable, and so practical, as I said. So, m previous to this understanding and previous to my insight, the busier the mind, the better of a human, I thought. The busier the mind, the more on top of it I am. And again, would not have been able to articulate it that way. I just thought that was, if somebody said, "Do you live in a busy mind?" I'd be like, "No, but I'm a responsible person, you know?" Um, Now it's flipped to where I can see that when I'm busy, it's unhelpful because um, in a quiet mind, my physical body absolutely there's a huge it's just so much better for literally the cells of my body. I can feel it. Weird little side effects of chronic stress have dissolved over the last decade that I just, again, thought that was the way my body functioned. And as those things have fallen away, I'm like, oh, geez, that was a result of my chronic stress. So there's obviously the physical side of things. But the other impact of wanting to be in a quiet mind more and more often in my life, it's just I feel sturdier as a human. I feel like my direction and the steps that I take in my career and my business, um, and the guidance there, even for my relationships, is so sturdy, so solid. Um, Everywhere I look in my life, I feel very aligned. Whereas before, there were some parts of my life I felt like I'd leave myself at home and I'd be somebody else to fulfill whatever the thing was that I was up to, even some friendships that I had. Because I would abandon myself to take care of other people a lot. And now it's like because I listen to that deeper space inside of me, um, I don't make decisions from a busy mind. I can wholeheartedly say that now. I do not do that because I can you can feel it. All of us can. Anytime, because I get a busy mind because I'm a human. But anytime I can feel that grip or tension by any stretch, I wait for it to pass, which sometimes is momentary. It's not like it's a big deal. But I wait until I have a deeper sense of what feels right to me. And as a result, I live in a very aligned life with the truth of who I am. Um, and if anybody listening is kind of questioning the difference between how do you know if your decision is coming from your wisdom versus your head, to me, when we make decisions based on that deeper wisdom, that deeper common sense, it feels very expansive. Versus when we make decisions from our head, it can feel very tight
Limited.
and
Yeah.
limited. That's right.
I can relate to that. I can relate to all of that. And yeah, when I was a project manager, I was the one who wore the badge of honor for thinking about work overtime and doing overtime. And if I wasn't thinking about it, I wasn't taking my work seriously enough. I was that guy. And now having this deeper understanding in many years, further ahead, I think, oh, if only I knew what I knew now, that was
Right.
just getting in the way of me being the best version of myself.
Yes. God. Yes. So relatable. So freaking relatable. Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Um,
Love it.
I think we've touched on this one already, but I'll mention it anyway because it'd be a good one to wrap up with. But how do we know when we are starting to get caught up in work stress? Because for me, for my own personal experience with work stress at work, is I felt in my body, like you say, this, you feel the sensation of it physically. But
Hmm.
despite you thinking it's because you've got a big meeting later, or you've got to travel for work at the airport, or you're blaming it on all this stuff in the outside, but it's only happening in here. And what if it's the sweaty palms or the or the heart beating a little bit faster? That's just a like a result of your thinking. So I guess
Yes.
I kind of answered that already, but if you want to elaborate on that more, like how do we know when we're caught up in a stressful moment?
Well, yeah, I mean, you've nailed it. You've said it so clearly, and we can all be caught off by it, like I recently had a client voice note me about some insecure feelings that she was having about an upcoming interview. And it was looking to her, I could tell by the way that she had communicated to me, it was looking to her like her nervousness was telling her about how she was going to do in the interview. So when I reminded her that her nervousness was letting her know where she was in the movie of her mind, like, essentially just her thinking, right? But she was not even realizing that she was fully in the next day already and thinking through how it could go, right? So relatable. And then the feeling in her body, because she was thinking that, because she was picturing being in the interview and then having the nervous feelings, she was like, "Ugh, my nervous feelings are telling me that picture in my head is not going to go well." And I said, "No, that's not the way it works. Our feelings are telling us about what's happening right now. So your feelings are letting you know that you are in the future and just to simply come back. Our feelings are this magnificent alert system. They are this magnificent cue, about what's going on inside of you right now. And when we start to understand and see very clearly that thought by nature is fluid and moves on its own, thought by nature is infinite. So, whatever thinking you're in right now that is stressing you out, the reality is there's more thinking right behind it that's going to change your experience. But we kind of, when we get locked into a world of thought that is creating uncomfortable feelings, we kind of hold it there. and we think harder about it because it's like we think we need to think it away or think ourselves to a better feeling. And when you see like, oh God, just me doing that is what's creating this feeling inside of me. And my body's trying to let me know, you know, let, release it, let it go. Let's,
I
see
think
what
that's
comes
it,
in.
isn't it? I think I remember Michael Neal describing that on one of his tapes quite wonderfully, and he said something about, when you get in the car, and especially in the modern cars, and you're reversing, and there's sensors, like you're about to hit something. Well, those
Yeah,
sensors are kind of like off, letting us know that our thinking is kind of out of whack a little bit, and just to
that's
kind of like just let it settle.
right. That's right. I love using dashboards to cars because,
Cars are a good one when it comes to this
they
understanding.
are. Because when we're in our car and we get an alert on our dashboard, we know that that alert is telling us about our engine. We're not thinking, oh, is this alert telling me about the car that's 2 lanes over? No. We know, oh, shoot, there's something up in my engine that I need to pay attention to. But when it comes to the vehicle that we live in, our skin suit, when it comes to that vehicle, we innocently think our feelings are telling us about something 2 lanes over, when really our feelings are letting us know what's going on in our engine, which is our mind.
I, your story about your client really really resonated with me again because that was my well it still is in a sense when I forget this understanding now and again a lot
Yeah, 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 yeah.
my problem was the future. I didn't particularly worry about the past. I was a weird one. A lot of people seem to you put your clients will come up to you and go, oh, my past, my past, my past. Like
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people. I'm more like, oh, especially as a PM, planning for the future, the future, the future, the future, the future, and that's what got riveted in my brain about not living in the moment. I was thinking about the future all the time, and with it's not because I've left project management world. It's because my thinking's changed. Let's get that right. But um, now my understanding's deepened. I don't really worry about the future more as well. I seem to be a little bit more present, which is nice. But I just thought I'd share that was my problem, the future, because you're quite the
Yeah,
same issue.
that's right. Absolutely. And me too. I was a future
Yeah,
forward worrier also. And I will say, in case anybody's like, oh, but you moved on from being a project manager, that's why you're not stressed anymore. I would love to say that, you woke up to something that helped you see that you had a lot of thinking around your role at work. And oftentimes,
absolutely.
when we wake up to that, it helps us to actually get clear on what we really want in our lives. And that clarity is what guides us.
Because even now I've left, I always think, yeah, I left like 18 months ago now, and I always fall into the trap. I always think, oh, work this and work that and kind of thing. And I still fall into the trap of blaming it on something else for my
Yeah.
experience when I get humbled and just come back to the present and think, oh, it's me all along. And it always will be me.
And Luke, let me tell you, we're all on that learning curve. I fall for pits. I fall into the trappings of, oh, that person made me feel this way. Oh my God, I'm a human being. And then I wake up to it, and go, oh no, that's not the way it works. And frankly, hang on to all of that humility because that is a huge piece of the puzzle. When we get caught up into ideas of, either I should know better, I should know this by now, or I know for sure my feelings are coming from over there this time. And then we, you know, dig our heels in on it. All of that is pure ego. And so if you've got even just a little bit of the ingredient of humility in there, that's what helps you kind of break up your thinking around, oh, shoot, no, it's
And
me
it helps you
again.
to move on from your distress as well,
It
doesn't it?
sure does. It
Yeah.
sure does. It
Yeah.
sure does.
Because sometimes I always think back and think, oh, if during those times as a project manager, if I understood what I know now deeper, maybe I'd still be a project manager. And I'm thinking, well, no, Luke, because you were thinking what you were thinking at the time, that was right at the time, and you left because your thinking was right at the time. You saw
Yes.
a space that you went into, and now you're kind of moving on with your life. Like we just said, you're
That's right.
building better things with the understanding that you've got.
That's right. Something that was so beautifully communicated to me because I was watching whenever I go in and work with businesses and I work with a group of people. I kept having this experience over and over again. And then my colleague and friend, Win Morgan, said, he goes, "Oh no, that's normal. I just tell the hiring entity, I tell them it before I go into the contract so they have the heads up." But what's interesting is this is my experience that I brought to him and he goes, "Oh yeah, no, that's what's happened." But almost every time I go in to work with a leadership team or anything, at least one person quits. And it's because they wake up, they gain some clarity and realize their own wisdom and common sense has been kind of quietly nudging them to move on from their job. But their thinking has negotiated with it and convinced them that they should stay for X, Y, and Z reasons. And that frustration has been spewing onto everybody around them. And so I was seeing that happen. Like the last company I worked with that I shared this with Win. This is over a year ago at this point. You know, the last company I had this experience with and shared it with him before I started then pre-warning people before they hire me. But in my last final day on a 3-day training, it was with 5 managers and the boss, the owner of the company. And 3 out of those 5 managers in front of me quit.
Wow.
And the boss turned to me and said, "Did you know this was going to happen?" Like, meaning, because we had also had one-to-ones, me and the group.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, "No, I did not know." I had heard in follow-ups of other groups that I'd worked with that maybe one person would drop out of a group of 12, things like that, which, you're kind of like, that's life. But to have it happen to me, and it was, 80% of the management team doing it all at once right in front of me, that's what kind of made me go, I could see why, and it was beautiful. They all ended up being able, because they were all in a deep feeling, they were able to communicate it well, and the boss received it. And she goes, "I'm a little stunned. I'm going to need to lick my wounds for 2 days, but this is probably better in the long run." There was so much goodness that came out of it. One of the people who quit said, "Jessie, you have shown me another way because all growing up, challenging conversations were always met with massive negativity. So I have never been able to make moves on things that I feel I need to do for myself because I'm always fearful of how I'll be
Yeah.
received." And he's like, "You've just shown me what's possible, even in challenging conversations." And it's true, staying heart connected and having goodwill at the center of the conversation, you can work through anything with others.
I remember being on a train once when I was a project manager, and I was going to a site in Liverpool from memory, and I was listening to a Mavis Khan recording on the train, and this lady was kind of similar to what you just said about these people. She was in the corporate world, and she she quit. I think she quit, or she was about to quit. I think she was might have been in a notice period, something like that, and she was saying to Mavis something like, "Oh, I don't know if I've," basically questioning if she'd done the right thing. And Mavis Khan replied to her quite beautifully and said something like, "Isn't it great you knew what to do?" And that was that. And then the silence after saying that was deafening, really. And she was like, "Oh yeah,
That's right. That's right. And that's essentially what happens. It's like, because I know that that can be kind of a crux or a crutch for people is if I have so much understanding of how we work inside, does that mean that I will, as I've already said once, become a doormat to people's behavior because people can act a certain way and I won't take it personally. I'll just understand, oh, they're caught up in themselves. That's not personal to me. So does that mean I'll end up in environments that aren't good for me? Because, right, that's the crutch for kind of a point of confusion for people at some point of learning. And again, what we just illustrated is the opposite is true. When we get clear on, when we feel unhooked from others, and can see that nothing is personal for ourselves, it is amazing how much noise in our mind that diminishes. And then therefore we can listen to and honor our own deeper wisdom and common sense with more sturdiness. Whereas when we're taking everything personally, we'll have a knowing, because it doesn't ever go away, whether you're distracted or not. We'll have a knowing of what to do, but we'll have so much noise inside because we're dealing with all of the opinions and all of the story we have around people. And that's actually what keeps us in relationships for quote unquote too long, or at jobs for quote unquote too long, is because of that dynamic. Whereas when we're freer inside, because we don't feel hooked by others, that's when we can move on from things and in a beautiful and respectful way, as opposed to that reactive way of like getting to your rock bottom and saying, screw this, I'm out, and toss the table and never come back. It's like you start to be able to step away from things with kindness,
Yeah.
even when you're like,
Yeah.
this is not great and good luck and Godspeed, but I'll see you later, it's not working.
Yeah. And that's a much better direction to go than what you said, like throwing a table up in the air. We've all been there. I've been there,
Absolutely.
and I'll always will go there. But when you understand a little bit and you can just get that little bit, the
Yeah.
outcome's so much better.
Yes, 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 yes. For your experience of life, your physical experience, and then also your relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what a beautiful conversation. I've really, really enjoyed it, I must
Is it
admit.
over? Let's go 10 more hours. I'm good. Just kidding. No, truly, Luke, you are absolutely following a deeper feeling here in your path. And I'm really grateful that you are another person on this planet that's helping to share this understanding, because it is so helpful. And ultimately, we need as many people as possible to feel at home inside, because when that happens, we just conflict diminishes because we just have more understanding of each
That's
other.
it. That's it. I think that's why I am trying to do it because I've got to a point where I know too much now not to do it. It would be a
That's
shame
right.
not to teach this when I know too much and you know too much. And like you say, if people around the world know too much, why not share it and
That's
spread
right.
it around?
That's right. And it doesn't matter if is anybody out there listening that feels touched by what we're saying, but is also extremely passionate and in love with what they do. And it has nothing to do with helping others with, it doesn't matter. Just start seeing it for yourself and then live your life. Because if you're in fashion, if you are a caretaker, if you are, my point is, if you are in any field other than the field of helping others, having this understanding for yourself not only will bring you that feeling of unconditional peace and unconditional love, independent of what's going on in your circumstances. So that is unbelievably helpful in and of itself. But you can be such a help to others in whatever field you're in.
That's the thing as well, isn't it? I think a lot of people are obviously in jobs they don't like. They don't like being in a job, and that's kind of why I teach this. And this is my niche because I know there's people out there that don't like the job they're in, but if I can just make it a little bit easier for them until
Yeah,
they change direction, it's worth doing. And on the flip side, there are people that are in jobs they should be in, but can't see it because they're thinking they bring to it.
that's right.
So
That's right. That's right.
It's worth teaching from that angle as well.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Well,
Nailed it.
do you want to take an opportunity to let people know before we end the podcast of what you're up to in the future, how they can get in touch with you, and obviously your email address, and I mentioned it at the start, your podcast, What Moves You with Jessie. I'll put all the links in the. I'm going to put this up on YouTube and on the podcast, the audio on podcast as well. But I'll put all the links to your stuff on each one as well, so people can get
That's
to
so
it.
nice. Awesome. Thank you so much, Luke. Yeah. I'm very easy to find with my What Moves You with Jessie. So What Moves You with Jessie is my website, whatmovesyouwithjessie.com. It's my podcast. It is, you can contact me at Jessie at whatmovesyouwithjessie.com. What else? It's my Instagram, it's my social handles for Instagram, all the things. Instagram's my main hangout space. I've taken a couple of stabs at TikTok and it's fun, but I think I found my home at
I
Instagram.
downloaded TikTok for 5 minutes and
Yeah.
instantly, honestly, I
Yeah.
was like, what is this? I'm getting too old now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Too
Looking away
noisy.
straight
Yeah,
away. But
yeah.
I've noticed Instagram's a lot more calmer.
It is. It's calmer.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, so what moves you with Jesse is the way to find me in any way. And as far as upcoming things, of course, I work with people one to one. So if anyone's interested, I do UK retreats with my dear and wonderful friend and colleague, Win Morgan. So there is a page on my website where you can learn more about that, but we will be doing another one. Just spoke to him this morning. We will be doing another one in mid-September of 2026. So I'll be coming over to your side of the pond,
Oh wow.
September. Yep. We should meet for coffee or something.
Yeah, it should be a lot warmer then as well.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's why I choose that, choose that kind of time of year because that will be our fourth one. We started those a year and a half ago and we did three very, very quickly because we just absolutely love working together. So I'm doing that and I'm also co-writing a book with another
Oh
dear friend and
wow,
colleague.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, Lily Seiss, who is also in the principals conversation. Her social media is Peace from Within, and her
Oh
focus.
yeah, I've got her. I'm linked with her. I didn't know you knew
Yeah,
her though. Yeah,
yes. We
yeah,
ran a retreat in Los Angeles together, not
yeah.
this summer, but the
Her
summer
content's
before.
great as well, from what I can see. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very,
yeah,
very relaxing, therapeutic, and just hitting the message simply.
yes, yes. She is somebody who she was a school psychologist and had such crippling anxiety that she could not drive on the freeway in Los Angeles, which is unbelievable. I think to myself,
Wow.
the
Yeah.
places that she would ride her bike because she couldn't drive. I just can't believe the streets she had to go on to do that, But anyway, she had driving anxiety, flight anxiety. She had depersonalization and derealization, which is essentially just the most extreme version of anxiety where you feel like you're not connected to the present moment. So the principles, this understanding also freed her of that. So her focus, kind of how your niche is business, hers
Yeah.
is anxiety because so she's so passionate because her life was so limited when she was a school psychologist and in that in that body. And now is obviously very in a different experience. So anyway, so we're writing a really simple, straightforward book around anxiety and how to have an
Will
anxiety-free
it be
life.
coming out in the UK?
Yes, we will make
Oh,
sure it
great.
does.
Yes, that's
We're
the
at the
right
bit, we're
answer.
at the Yeah, yeah. We're at the beginning stages of writing, but it's coming out of us very effortlessly. And this is the first time I'm actually talking about it publicly because I feel confident it will be done quite quickly. So,
Oh, wonderful.
yeah, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Lily, we talk about Lily again. Another example, guys, of how this understanding works for people. Yeah.
Yes.
What she went through, like you just said, and how she's in the place she's in now. Amazing.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah. Very limited experience of life. And even though she was a wonderful help to her students as a school psychologist, it's unbelievable how free she is now. And yeah, and truly she thought she would just have to manage it her whole life and kind of it didn't stop her from flying places and it didn't stop her from driving somewhere far if she needed to for her kids, but she would white knuckle it. And so, that it has completely changed her life because now she's got ease, just like you, me, and the rest of us
And
that
how
gets
and
touched
how
by
and
her.
how life should be lived as well.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Wonderful, wonderful. I've really
Yeah.
enjoyed it, Jesse. Thanks again for coming on.
Yeah. You're welcome. Thank you so much for asking me.
No problem at all. Bye bye.
Bye.